Howdy. So I'm back with another one of my super unplanned um, impromptu videos that are probably not going to be as good as they could be if I'd have just sat down and make a plan. But I literally can't do it. I did this. I looked up this app thing that is popping up in my feed suspiciously about, hey, are you lazy? It's like, do you have problems being lazy? Maybe you just have, what was it called? Something like executive deficiency, or I don't remember what it was called. Dysfunction, executive dysfunction. I think that is what it is. But it's just apparently it's like a form of ADD, and it's just like whatever. I'm like, I don't know. That sounds like I might have that, but I don't care to follow through with whatever you're trying to tell me because I have executive dysfunction. So, but yeah, so here's my executive dysfunction attempt. I've done almost what, like 200 videos or something using this method. So I'm plugging along here. Um, anyways, so I feel like I'm finally getting to the like an end game with this because the idea was to come out with this succinct message of the gospel that could be transmitted to many people. I don't know. I don't really know where I just felt like I needed to do that. And I feel like it's getting close because of this idea of like loving God. And it's just getting more and more like succinct. Like the more things that I watch and the more things that I sort of filter through this lens of, loving God and making sure that that's what you're doing. And I realized today as I was listening to something, because I think I did mention maybe like once or twice in passing that I used to write romance. I say I used to because I haven't like written anything in like 6 months or something. And I sort of just like retired it because I don't know, I just didn't really feel like once the rapture stuff started happening, and then I just felt like it was distracting and just not something that because you're writing for the future, you're writing for your career, you're writing for dividends, you're writing so your catalog can be a certain amount. And I mean that was the goal, to get my catalog to a certain amount so that with just the proper marketing or whatever it could sort of sustain itself, blah blah blah. And I just really just couldn't focus on it anymore. And it was just it's kind of smutty. Like I was doing full on romance, and like I was asking God recently, like like because I keep kind of going back, even though when I started that, I really felt like God was telling me to do that. He was telling me to write, like he told me just to write. And at the time I hadn't written anything in, like, I mean, you could say decades, really. Like I never liked to do it. Hello, executive dysfunction. So writing a book, like writing anything, was just like whatever. And writing a book was this long, far off thing that was just like, yeah, right. And he told me that, he was like, you know what, you're really good at, like, he literally just started talking to me about it one day. He's just like yapping at me, like seriously, like to the point where I had to like stop because I was like listening, but it was just like, it's a voice in your head, and it's like, you're like, oh, is that God talking to me? But it also could just not easily not be. He doesn't, he does that on purpose because, uh, it's him regardless. It's like if the president is coming by and, it's a big to do in the airport, and the airport's all locked up because Air Force One is coming in, it's, if he like sends you a text, an anonymous text, it's still the president. You just don't, how are you, he's just one, like, how are you going to react to the information? You know what I mean? So, he was talking, and then I was looking, watching the TV, and it was like I heard him get louder over the TV. I'm like, bro, like, which he's never really done, like, to get my attention. So then I was like, listening. I was like, and he was just talking to me about like how I'm good at writing and I should just really like whatever. And I was like, and then I said, I was impacted by it, but I was like, I don't like to write. So like I hate it. It's just awful. It's excruciating. So if you want me to write, then you're gonna have to do something because I don't. You're gonna have to do that whole thing because I really don't like to. I can't even conceive of what you're talking about. And literally, like 3 days later, uh, I was like, I had written like 12,000 words, and it was romance of all things. And so I sort of revisit that every once in a while, like, because I just go, is this really what you want to do? Like, to write like smutty stories or whatever? I'm like, I must have just like, it must be like half right and half wrong. It must be like some good stuff in it and just like some junk in it. And the stuff that's good, he can keep. And, that's just what I'm assuming. And I just kind of keep going on, like, my merry way or whatever. But like, it dawned on me today, like, it's not like I chose a genre and was like, "Ooh, romance is good. It's lucrative." Blah blah blah. It's like it just dawned on me, like, while because I was reading a lot of romance at the time, which I had stayed away from because all the same reasons why people like crap on it now. It's just kind of this shallow, whatever. It's like not a worthy thing. I have a degree in writing. Like, I'm supposed to be writing the great American novel, not like, freaking romance or whatever. And, but it really was like when I picked it up, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it at the time, but um, it was very obvious. Like, this is my wheelhouse. Like, this is what my whole life is about. I don't know how you could just not know that, but I really just didn't know that. Like, I can point to things in my life and go like, well, because of this and this and this, there's no way you would go there. But honestly, it is a weird thing to not know your entire life. And then, so it was just, so I wrote for the last 5 years, I've written like 14 books. Like, sometimes I'm like, yo, I wrote this. Like, I'll pick one up, I still read them. I'll go through and be like, I wrote this thing, man. That's crazy. Like, I remember doing it and I remember, but it's just like, wow, it's done. I did those things. But it dawned on me today, or yeah, it was today, that not only am I writing romance, that is my wheelhouse. I actually like see everything romantically, and I'll explain what that means to me in a minute. And I actually read the Bible as a romance, and I always have. And romance doesn't mean like sex. It means like, I don't know, it's romantic. It's like this sweeping, every gesture is meant to convey something. It's like this epic thing. Like, a lot of people see, like, most of our movies, most of our, really the movies, because the movies have to be done in 2 hours, they have to be done in a certain amount of time. A book has a lot more leeway, but most of the movies are based on this idea of the hero's journey and, having to go get the MacGuffin and all the friends you make along the way, blah, blah, blah. And I always admire anybody that can do that and have the 3 acts and all of that because I see everything as romance. I even see the hero's journey as romance. Like, I can't help myself. Like, I'm always eyeing that. I'm looking for that. And to me, it's the thing that sells everything because it's the thing that we all really want. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just speaking for women, but I feel like men are included in this too because it's romance. Men can be included in the romance and not even about like, because again, it's not about just about the sexual relationship. It's about something being special. Like it's almost like the word holy really could just be romantic, but like no one would understand what God means by that if he said that. Like like holy just sounds a little more legit, but holy just means set apart when you break it down. And if you don't understand the context of what that means, it's like set apart for what? For destruction? For death? For what? Um, Set apart because it doesn't belong to the rest of the set because it's weird. Like, which there is something about that in the context. Talk about, being a peculiar people and all of this stuff. But there also is a lot of wedding talk and bride talk and God pursuing us and seeing his people as, his bride or his wife committing adultery on him when they go to other gods and him being jealous. I remember being like, I don't know, I was probably a teenager when I first like came across this passage of God talking about being a jealous God and stuff. And like I understood that right away. I was like, "What? Oh my gosh!" Like it was straight drama. It was like watching Scandal or something. It was like interesting to me. It wasn't about it because it was about Israel, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, y'all done got God in a tizzy. Like this is crazy." Like I just, and to me, what I see a lot of people doing is just not understanding that this is a romance. And so they're getting bent out of shape about stuff, which makes sense because there's a lot of weird stuff in romance, like by design, because like when you're writing, you have to write a story about two people who are supposed to be soulmates and supposed to belong together, but for some reason the book is 300 pages long. It's like, well, what are we doing this whole time? I thought aren't they supposed to be like the love of each other's lives? Like, hello. So you've got to write a story out of something that just should take like 2 minutes if it's so freaking meant to be, right? So there's a lot of stuff in it that's weird. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's people, getting with this person or that person, but then that not then the other person feeling a way about that and being like, why do I feel a way about that? And everyone has to discover and figure out and find out. And you heard the rumor that he actually wasn't like thinking of you that way at all, and then you're like, well, that's weird. And then so then a couple of years go by, and all of these things, these challenges that we put in. And I won't say that God is like purposely making this thing. He doesn't have to because of all of the elements involved. Um, so it really is organically doing that in life, especially when you think about like sin. And I heard this, I watched this really interesting near death experience the other day. And it was really short, but it was this guy who was saying, and this was something that happened to him in like when he was young. He like passed out at school or something. And um, he said he had this experience where he was like watching God create or something, or he had seen the creation of everything. But like he was like himself, but he wasn't himself yet. It was like the way he was describing it, it was like, and I was like barely paying attention. I was doing something else at the time, but I just remember him describing like it was like all he was in this thing of souls, and it was like waves or like a sea or something, and it was like all these souls, and they just weren't separate yet. Everything was together. It's like they were all together, but he could like, and he was watching God create. And it was like he was on this like sea of souls. You can see my hand, but I'm doing this. And when I tell you that I have not stopped thinking about that, like that's just all I see. Like every 5 seconds in my brain, it's just like being in a sea and like looking at blackness, like nothing is created yet. Because it really does say that before the foundation of the earth, we were all created. And like, that's just something in my mind that, it just does like that because there's already a lot of stuff that God has to think about. Like, yeah, like just God describing his process to you, you would just be like, what? Like, you just can't conceive. I mean, you got atheists out here saying there's no way anybody created all this. Like, it just had to come into being by itself over millions and millions and millions of years. And God is saying, no, I pre-planned. He says that he did, but like, there's just a difference between when God tells you something, you just go, okay, because it's just like, I can't analyze that. I can just agree with what you're telling me. That's all I can do right now. So, like, that was the first time I heard somebody describe it, and I was like, okay, I can actually see that. I actually can see that he created us all before he did anything. Like, I can see it, you know? So, that is like one of the most romantic things ever. Like, that is so, and it reminds me of another indie that I saw randomly, which was this guy that was talking about. He had died like he was like 19 years old, and he was like, God was like asking him, if he wanted to stay, and he said, I think he asked like, what would he be missing if he didn't stay or whatever, and like God showed him his life. And it was like, but he showed him like this like he said it was like this beautiful like montage with like a score and all of this stuff. He was like, oh my gosh, like I have to go back down, I gotta live this life. He just made it so beautiful. And like, we're all living here, we all know that that's not happening. So to me, in that moment, like hearing him describe that, it was like the way that, it's like the way that we go to see a movie and it's like a slice of life movie about someone's everyday life, and so, all the work that goes into making this life-like story about people, and we fall in love with it because it's just, you know it's set in podunk whatever, but they make it so artistic and all of this stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's God. you know so much about God's supremacy is not about, oh, he created everything and he's so strong he can make a boulder that he can't move. It's like the way that he can do things that a team of humans have to do, and he still does it so much better. Like, that, it's just so thorough. And like, when you go and you read about Jesus, when Jesus is praying, and it's all about like the oneness of, like, I'm one with you, and I pray that they're one with each other, like you're one with me and they're one with, like, bro, it's getting deep, man. It's romantic, I'm telling you. And if you still have problems with that, which you're going to, because you're steeped again in this world, in this earth, and you're going, ew, it's like, okay, listen. You wouldn't even know what these relationships are unless God made a framework for you to understand the difference between a husband and a friend and a brother and a cousin and a coworker. Like, what even is that when you're in a sea of souls and it's just that he's pre-making before anything gets here? Like, all of that stuff has to be separated and put in its compartments to give us a more dense, uh, rich understanding of relationships at all. Like, he's all the relationship. Like, it's all made up. Like, he made it all up. Like, it's just you and him. Like, it's just me and him. It's just God and us. Like, that's it. So, and we're just gonna, like, excuse, but it's not going to be like I don't think it's necessary to have all of these like whatever these flavors. It's a lot of flavors, but he does, and I'm like, cool, man, I trust you. Like, so you got to read it as like a romance. Like, God literally sacrificed his life to save our lives, which is literally a whole genre. That's a whole genre of literature, of romantic literature. Um, yeah. So it's just it's sad. It's sad. I mean, there's some people that don't want it, and I really just don't have. I just those people just irritate me. But and you want to say like, well, they just don't understand. They don't understand because if they understood, they wouldn't be like this. But you just never know. Some people are crazy, dude. Some people are crazy. We've all seen a relationship where the person is in a loving, stable, the person is just every day, showing up every day for them or whatever, and they simply are not interested. They hate it. They detest it. They like, you're like, oh, well, somebody did something to them. It's like, yeah, no, I get all that. And God's going to sort all that out. But the point is, we've all seen that. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of people that, they hear about what God hates or what God, the things that'll get you kicked out of heaven or sent to hell or something, and then they get all scared. It's like, that would be like if it was like a romance and you didn't know that you were in a romance and you were the main character, you were the other main character, the heroine or whatever, and the hero was like, because there's always going to be some point at which the hero, like going back to the whole thing about being jealous and God being a jealous God. It's like there's always going to be a scene where the guy's going to be jealous. Either you're going someplace, like no one's together yet, but he's still jealous because he still feels a possessiveness. Like, and it's really upsetting that this is getting, because that it really does exist in real life, particularly with men who are made in the image of God and are sort of meant to be exemplary of the Father. But when the earth is full of sinful men, it can really distort all the pictures of everything that could possibly be good. So, and you see this even in the romance writing community where there's just certain things you can't even write anymore because they have now been viewed as toxic because people are, I think, in my opinion, they're learning the wrong lessons all over the place. And it's like, okay, well, jealousy bad. Or, anybody that's, every guy that's ever been abusive to me was driving a freaking Ford. So all Fords are bad and misogynistic. It's like, it's literally like, that's where people are just trying to live their best lives so hard. And you want to just tell them like, hey, everyone here is whacked. It's not like the likelihood that you're going to come down here to this life and live like a great life from beginning to end, and you were gonna, but then this thing happened to you, it thwarted it. It's like that's you're 20 years old, because I guarantee you get a little bit older and you realize like this is everybody. Everybody's got someone, most people in their lives are a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And no one's like totally whatever. So it's like, oh, you like the jealousy? Well, you're in a toxic bond. It's like, no, they're just, you're all that's happening is that you're gravitating towards something positive in a person that's a hot mess. And you're deciding that you value the entire hot mess just for a couple, 3 things that are working properly. And honestly, everyone has a right to do that. You might think it's stupid, but every people have a right to do that. And what are you going to do? What is the rest of society going to do with that person? Are we just going to discard if we all discard all the dysfunctional people, not you, of course, but all of the dysfunctional people, where are they all supposed to go? Where do you think they're all gonna they're probably gonna like hide out at your house and try to get one of your babies. I don't know. I'm not saying like we should all be with dysfunctional people so they won't get any worse, but I'm just saying like you think you're solving one problem, you're creating another problem. Like it just there's problems everywhere. They're just live your life. Like you're not gonna get rid of the problems. Which this whole conversation is reminding me of something else, which is I was talking about Ecclesiastes like a video or two ago, and it's come to my attention that folks are still not clear on the purpose of Ecclesiastes in their Bibles, because and I understand because I did go through that period of like the whole thing is like everything is meaningless, and you're like, well, what is the why is this in the Bible? Like I'm so confused. And there's this pretty popular way of looking at it that I guess is still going around in 2023, which is amazing to me. Which is like, oh, this is not the it's very funny because I'm always talking about context and being able to read have reading comprehension and having, being trained in the languages of the arts and all this stuff. So they're doing something that is very language arts, but they're still misapplying it because it's not what it's doing. So nothing, you just can't help if you're just not smart enough. Or if you can't see it, you can't see it. It's not even about smarts. It's about can you see it or can you not? And a lot of people can't see a lot of stuff. And that's unfortunate. But even with tools, if you can't see it, there's what are you fixing? So they're trying to apply a method because they're saying, okay, the who is the audience for Ecclesiastes, and what is he trying to say, and is this really? So what they're trying to say is that Ecclesiastes is a perspective of Solomon, who's out of his mind by this point. He's married 1,000 wives, like he's off his rocker, he's gone off the rails, and this is his perspective, and it's framed by a person on the outside saying like, this is what not to this is how not to be, this is how not to think about the world, because this is what happens when you just become nihilist. It's like, okay, no, nope. First of all, why would God have a whole nihilistic book in there? And then just a little paragraph that says, like, yeah, don't be like this guy. It doesn't make sense. Like, just, you haven't really understood it, and that's fine. But yeah, it's like, so there's certain interpretations that have just this rushed, hurried type of explanation because people are in seminary now. They're going to church now, and you've decided to do this whole like TT series on stuff that you don't even understand yet, and you got to have an explanation for it fast. That's what I feel like a lot of these explanations are. But yeah, I was baffled by it too for a long time. There were some good things in about, there's a season, a time for this, a time for that. And a lot of those things get quoted. The good stuff gets quoted. A lot of the weird stuff just doesn't get quoted. Nothing new under the sun. I know you've heard that a million times. That is in Ecclesiastes. That's from Ecclesiastes. But basically, what he's trying to get across, and I'm pretty sure, I think the modern world the modern world should be like on it with this, but maybe the I don't know. Are we postmodern now? But yeah, especially in America, it's like everything is like American dream, like just pick up your bootstraps or whatever. Um, but basically, when he's saying like, he'll say something like, "I saw a dude," and I'm trying to like, I can't tell if I should try to make my own fake Ecclesiastes passage or if I should try to remember one that actually exists. But he's just like, I saw a dude that worked his entire life, and then you know, he died. He had no he had no wife, he had no sons, he couldn't pass the wealth on to anybody. And the whole thing just didn't mean anything. Like, it's just meaningless. He's like, I see it in another thing, which was, you know, a unmarried woman who, I mean, whatever. He's just going through and like saying like this is meaning this, and the point is, oh, the first part is, he's Solomon. He's the King Solomon. He can do whatever he wants. So he's like, I went off and I just like indulged every possible thing that I could possibly indulge. Because this is obviously post wisdom. Like God gave him wisdom, and so now he's like, like I understand. I get it. Like, when you have wisdom, when God gives you like a super download of wisdom, you don't have regular concerns. And you're a king, like you do not have regular concerns. He's just like, okay, what can I do? So he goes and he tries to just indulge his every whatever, and he realizes that that's meaningless. Then he like applies himself and he does everything with strict discipline, whatever, and he finds out that's meaningless. But a couple of times he'll say something like, the only thing that I found worth doing is to like enjoy the thing that you do in life, like enjoy your work, love your family. And he's like, the hardworking guy that works, like toils for every penny that he makes, he goes home tired, he sleeps good. He's like, the rich guy is just sitting at home with hemorrhoids worrying that his wealth is going to be taken out from under him. So these are the types of observations he's making. What he's basically getting down to is that don't envy the king, don't envy the poor person, or don't, more than likely you're going to look down on the poor person. He's saying, whatever advantage you think that this person has over you as a human soul, don't even worry about it, because most of the stuff that we care about or we think that's going to do something, it doesn't mean anything. It's good news. Everything that he observes is revealing the fact that basically we live in a simulation of God's creation, and he is just having us all go on journeys. And you might as well trust it. It's fine. Don't look over there. Don't look over there. Guarantee you it's going to end in the same. All of the stuff that doesn't mean anything is going to get burned away. But he was the first person to get like the super eagle eye glasses and really see like, dude, none of this means anything. Like, but he didn't really harp on exactly what was going on. He wasn't really concerned with telling people, like, I don't think he didn't get that far about like the fact that like how everything was working. And then Jesus hadn't come yet. He didn't know what was going on except for like, dude, none of this means anything. Like, it just was hilarious. Like, to me, that's hilarious. I'm sorry. Like, God gave him so much wisdom. He's like, bro, what are we doing here? You die. The rich guy died and got like dirt on him, and he just like went into the ground. The poor guy died and like is buried beside him. Hello? What are, like, is anybody saying what I'm saying? Like, that is Ecclesiastes. It's like Solomon having a big, huge part of the revelation that of the whole, but not like just a piece of it, but just a really big piece of it, and just being like, guys, what even is this? So that is Ecclesiastes. So absolutely read Ecclesiastes literally. He is literally telling you his insights about the things that matter. And guess what? The little things what ends up mattering all happens to be things that are good if you love God. So love God. Because if you love God, it's going to take you down a path to collect. You're going to collect all of that meaningful stuff automatically. He was doing it manually. He was like, I'm going to follow all of my passions. I'm going to pursue, I'm going to do all that. He was just, by process of elimination, going down the list. And I won't say he's wasting his time. He was doing research on this existence. And he found out like the things that mattered. And I love that he finds out that what matters is to like really to be able to enjoy things here, because you can have all of the wonderful things and not enjoy them, and that is terrible. I mean, ask anybody who's gone through that. So just to have the palate to taste, the eyes to see, the ears to hear beautiful music, to enjoy things here, that he's big on that. But yeah, so this is all kind of getting scattered, but uh not really. Like God wants you to enjoy life and enjoy him, and I can't remember who said it. It's some like old Catholic thing. I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's in the Bible. I feel like this is attributed to a certain person, that it's like our purpose in life is to like enjoy God and worship. I don't know. I forget what the whole is, but it's true. It's true. Um, like I think when everybody thinks about like what some of the happiest times in their lives, or like something that is like a mixture of being like happy and poignant and whatever, and it all comes down to that special person and meeting that person, even if it was just like your first love and you're not together anymore or whatever. It's just like being able to uh, gaze upon someone and think they're the bee's knees and have them actually be the bee's knees and like all of that stuff. Like we need something to set our eyes on. It's like, think of anybody who is loves has a favorite artist or a favorite director or a favorite whatever, and just all of the love and the enthusiasm and the that they pour out on that. They pour energy into that, and it's worthwhile to them. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But it's like all of that we could be doing for God, and we should be doing for God, because God created that person, number one. Number two, like God is way beyond, like he's that times a quadrillion skillion, and we're never going to get to the bottom of him. Like we're never going to get tired. And that's like one of the sort of silent sorrows that we have here, is that we do get fatigued by people and things. And it's just like, why does this have to go away? Why does it have to be bad? Why does this have to get familiar? Why does this have to like, why do I have to get used to this? Like, and that's why you see a lot of people bounce around from place to place, person to person, trying to maintain that same bliss. It's like they're trying to manually do something that only God can do and sustain. And it's just so funny. It's just like I see it everywhere. I see people doing the thing that they say doesn't exist, or they say that they don't know that God can do. It's like watching someone without a car be like, man, if I just had something that like could get me to places faster, and you see people with like tying things. It's like, I need something like, with something that'll move continuously. It's like wheels. It's like, no. You're like, okay. So to see people clearly striving to do something, to have something that is God, and they don't know, they don't think that it's the one that you're describing, because they don't realize that it's a romance, and they don't realize where they're at in it, like who they are in it. Everything is like, ooh, the mean, angry God is going to get you, which is just like, that's like you have a brain virus called sin, and you just have absolutely no connection to what is going on. Hold on, I need to see why my mom's yelling. Okay. It's not at me, so I think it's handled. Anyways. So, and it does get confusing. You got some people saying that he is angry, and you got some people saying, no, he's love. He's all love. He loves you. He died for you, which is all true. And then you got some people saying like, you're going to go to hell. Hell exists. And it's like, all of those things are true. It's really like difficult. And then some of us are called, some of us are chosen, some of us are, not. He's going to separate the sheep from the goats, wheat from the tares. The devil sowed seed, and it grew up along with the good seed. And he said, let's wait till it all grows together and then harvest it. It's like all of that stuff is true. Like, I hate to break it to you, but there's some people on the earth that are bad. And God created them. I don't know. It's like, I can't. To me, it's like it's a burden. It's a hard burden if you try to take it on, thinking about all of that. What's better is that if we each individually do our part, which is us coming to the knowledge of the truth, which is that, like, God made us before the creation of the world, because, which makes perfect sense now. It sounded like a lot elaborate and like over the top before, but it's like he makes everything, like, he prepares everything for everything. So, like, he made everything in the earth before he put us in there. He made the angels first, not because they're more important, but because we were going to be made and they were going to serve us. Like, which sounds crazy, but also makes sense. Like, it only sounds crazy because we're here on Crap Planet and we've never seen or heard anything like this. But it's like, dude, this is so romantic, dude. Like, we're on Crap Planet. We have no idea. Also, romance genre going crazy right now. Like, that's a whole genre. You being the hidden king, the hidden princess, genre. You having a long lost love that you have, but you have amnesia, genre. Like, it's all the genres. It's all the genres. Like, and like, you meet him and you're just like, what do you want from me? Go away. And he's like trying to like assure you that he's not like a bad person. Like, all the genres, genre. And then, like, but you keep shunning him and he keeps trying to whatever. And then you finally have the realization, like, the final chapter, 26 chapters of you running. I didn't put this book down. I can't stand books like that, but a lot of people love them. So, yeah. Anyways, I probably am going to have to make another video after this, but I'm getting closer to what I'm trying to say. And I hope y'all understand what I'm saying.